Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta Ndlela. If you are looking to improve your communication skills, both professionally and personally, this is the podcast you should be tuning into. Communication and soft skills are crucial for your career growth and leadership development. We are looking for entrepreneurs or professionals who are willing to share their communication challenges on the show. And if this is something that is of interest to you, you will find more details on the show notes. Now let's get communicating with Dave Albin, who, listen to this, is the #1 Firewalk instructor in America. He is a Tony Robbins protege who worked with him for almost 2 decades and is the founder of Firewalk Adventures. And before I go any further, please help me welcome him to the show. Hey, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me, Roberta. It's nice to be here.
My pleasure. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be on the show. The #1 Firewalk instructor. I thought to myself, I couldn't miss this. But before we get into
Well, there's only 2 of us, so I'm #1. So, I mean.
It's like, when you used to, if you grew up in the rural area and you say, I was top of my class, they'd be like, how many of you were in the class? 5?
Right, yeah, exactly. It's right. Like the kid that took 8th place in the swimming meet contest, right? So
with 8 lanes.
And how many kids were there in that? There were 8. Yeah, but I took 8th place. Yeah.
Right. So Dave, please introduce yourself.
Well, yeah. So I'm Dave Albin, and I live up here in the Appalachian Mountains in the northwestern part of the state of North Carolina. I've got a cute, quaint cabin up here in the mountains. I actually chose to live up here for a variety of reasons. Number one, I like the clean air because my cabin's at 3,500 feet above sea level. And I've got mountain spring water coming into my cabin. And, I'm an empty nester. One of my kids lives in Granbury, Texas. My other kid, my son, lives 25 minutes from me in Boone, North Carolina. He graduated from App State, got a great job. And I literally believe that I'm one of the most blessed men on the planet. And it's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
You better stick with being blessed, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That is so beautiful. When you talk about the water, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you know how many times we have these debates of, is this water good enough for drinking? Is it? You don't have to worry about that.
No, I do not. And it's funny because I've been into water. I've been studying water for a long time. And, and some of the coaching that I do and some of my clients and such, I tell them, if you're drinking tap water, you better fix it. Because that water, think about our great grandparents and our grandparents. Did they drink that? No, of course they didn't. No, they don't drink municipal water. They don't drink water that's got chemicals in it or chlorine or fluoride. No, it's got to come out of the mountain. It's got to come out of the ground. It needs to fall down from the mountains. And so water is one of the most important things we put in our body. We're 70% water. So it's like, oh, well, easy for you, Dave. You live up there, but I live in the city and blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Then get yourself some kind of filtration system so that at least you can take out some of the contaminants so your body doesn't have to deal with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we want to be healthy. Health is the #1 form of wealth. Now, let's talk about your background. How did you get started?
Well, the smart aleck answer is I took that left-hand turn at Albuquerque, as Bug Bunny would say, right? It started way back. I was born to a single mom. A couple of months before I was born, my biological father, we really don't know what happened to him. We just know that he hit his head, and to save his life, they put a plate in his head. And so this is in 1954, and he had a lot of pain associated with that plate. He used to complain about it a lot to my mom. And one day he said, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. 2 months before I was born, we never saw or heard from him again. So when I was born to a single mom. She already had 2 boys from another marriage. And we also had a cousin and her mother, all of us living, 6 of us living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, California. Now, my mom did come out of what I believe is the greatest generation of all time. She went through the Great Depression. She was Rosie the Riveter during World War II. She worked for McDonnell Douglas. She built airplanes, because during the war, a lot of people don't realize what do you think all the women were doing when the men were overseas, either in Germany or defending against the Japanese? They did everything. Women did everything. They built planes and jeeps and tanks and munitions. I mean, it's incredible. And, you know, without the women working as hard as the men were, we'd have lost the war. So Mom knew hard work. The challenge was this, Roberta. She was working at the Roosevelt Hotel, a well-known hotel in Hollywood. Lots of famous people went in there all the time, but she was a server. And she just didn't earn enough to feed six people. Even though she worked every shift. I remember hearing she was working, you know, 70, 80 hours a week. She was never home. And so anyway, long story short, by the time I was 5 years old, she couldn't feed me. And so she went to her oldest sister and said, "Hey, Pat, will you and Bob, her husband, my uncle, will you adopt David?" And they said, "Yes, absolutely." And so I was adopted by my aunt and uncle. So that was my, you know, that was my mom's sister and her husband, Bob. He was career military. So he had a really good job. He made good money. We lived in a nice house. We always had nice things. We went on nice vacations. Everything was perfect. I mean, I jokingly say it was Little House on the Prairie from the time I was 5 when they adopted me to the first day of summer of 1964 when I'm 11 years old. And when I woke up that morning, I went in, sat down, started watching TV. You know, it's the first day of summer. You know how excited you are as a kid, right?
Of course.
My mom comes in and goes, "David, come to the kitchen. We need to speak with you." Went in, sat down. My mom, I'm sitting here, mom's here, dad's here. And she put her hand on my hand, and with tears in her eyes, she said, "David, what we need to tell you is we're not your parents."
Whoa.
Whoa. Yeah. What
your
was right?
Mom?
The mother that adopted me, which is again they're my aunt and uncle, but I don't know them. They're my mom and dad. That's all I knew.
Oh, right? You didn't know at the time when they took you from your mom that this is your aunt and uncle. Oh, okay.
I didn't know. That's like taking somebody outside and going, "Yeah, the sky's not blue." Really? Looks pretty blue to me. You know, it looked like my parents to me. And so, in fact, she even went on to say, she said, "By the way, you know your Aunt Dean? Yeah, she's your mother." What? I don't even like her.
So your mom, you didn't know that was your mom?
I did not know. She was my aunt. That's what I called her, Aunt Dean. Now, when I say I didn't like her, let me clarify that. Every time she was around me, she was always really weird, or at least what I thought was weird, because she always wanted to sit next to me. She always wanted to hug me. She always wanted to kiss me. She always wanted to be around me. Well, duh. I'm her son.
Mom.
She's my mom. But I didn't know that. Right? It's like, what? So I just thought it was weird. And it was never inappropriate, please. It was just, you know, anytime she got a chance to be around me, she wanted to be as close to me as she possibly could. And so, you know, right after they told me this, both of them had sworn off alcohol at 5 when they adopted me. And shortly after they told me this, they both started drinking. Oh, no. And my life went, whoop, just took a hard turn. Everything, the Little House on the Prairie just collapsed. And one day when they went to the grocery store, because I was watching these people drink this stuff. I don't know what alcohol is. I have no idea. But I was curious, and I was curious enough that when they left one day, I went and grabbed a coffee cup and I filled it up about that full. I knew where they were hiding it in plain sight. It was brandy. It was in a big half-gallon bottle. And I poured it in a coffee cup and I downed it. Nastiest tasting stuff I ever tasted. But it was like pouring rocket fuel in me. Roberta, I never, ever had a chance. I totally believe that I was an alcoholic right there on the spot, because I started acting out from that moment on, and I wanted more because I liked the feeling. I liked how it made me feel. And so from that point on, I started chasing it and everything else that would, you know, that was addictive.
And how old were you at this point when you got your first?
I'm 11.
11. Okay.
And by the time I was a junior in high school, they called me into the principal's office shortly after, you know, the beginning of my junior year and said, "Albin, out. You're a danger to the school. Get out." So they expelled me, and I didn't care. I was like, "Good, see ya." I could care less. Back then there was a song by Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel. And one of the lyrics in there was my theme song. It was like, when I think back to all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all. And I knew that whatever I was learning in high school was not going to interfere with how I made money. And the reason I say that is because I was an entrepreneur at a very young age. You know, when I was young, the first job I had was a paper route. That's a 7-day-a-week job. You had to go ride your bicycle to a location. They drop off the papers. You had to take the papers, fold them, put a rubber band around them, load them in your saddlebags, put them on your bicycle, and go throw them, man, and deliver them.
Yep.
And then you had to go knock on doors, right, when new people would move in. So yeah, it was a full-time job. The other thing is I lived right across the street from a golf course. And here's what I learned about golfers at a very young age. They suck. Right? Because what I would do is I'd take my Stingray bicycle and I would ride the perimeter of the golf course. And guess what I'd find?
Yeah.
Golf balls. Lots of them. Because these guys
Which means they didn't score.
Right. They hit them over the fence and they wouldn't climb to go get them. And I'd go search for them. I could find them. I'd even jump the fence at night and go into the lake because the lakes were only about this deep. And when you walked out there with a flashlight, you could see them.
Tons of them.
Tons of them.
They were way off.
And I would take them home and I'd clean them because they're always dirty.
Right.
And then I went back to the golf course and they would, and the boxes, when they sell new ones, the boxes, they come in, they throw them out. Well, I'd go in the trash can and get them. And then I'd take all the balls that I cleaned and I'd put them in those boxes. And I'd put all the same brands if I could together: Titleist, Maxfly, Royal, Dunlop, whatever. And then I'd go back to the parking lot and sell them back to the golfers.
I like that.
Right?
You've always been entrepreneurial.
Well, and it even got better because my mom grew beautiful. Pat, you know, my aunt, I'm going to call her mom because she really was my mom.
She was your mother, yes.
She grew beautiful flowers in the backyard. Pat grew up she was the oldest of, you know, all the kids, and she grew up in the Depression. So mom was resourceful. She knew how to do anything. She taught me how to clean, how to cook, how to do laundry, how to iron a shirt, how to starch a shirt. I mean, she taught me so much home economics, if you will. And she even taught me how to treat a girl, you know, how to treat a girl on a date. I mean, mom set me down and said, you do this, you do that, you don't do this, you don't do that. She was right about everything.
I love that.
So anyway, she grew beautiful flowers. The whole backyard was flowers, and she cut them. And when she cut them at an angle, not at the bottoms, because it opened up more surface area for the flower to get water. And then she had a beautiful eye for color. She'd bundle them up and put a rubber band around them. And then she would put them in a bucket for me, and she'd put water in it. And she'd put about this much 7-Up in the water. And the 7-Up worked its magic because my flowers would outlast the local florist 3-1.
The same 7-Up we drink?
Same 7-Up we drink still works to this day. I coach guys all the time. I'm like, look, go get your wife flowers, go cut them at an angle, put them in a vase, put some clean water in it, put a little bit of 7-Up in it, and watch how long they last. And if you if you clean them out and, you know, recycle and do it again in about a week and a half, they'll last 3 weeks.
Wow. Crazy. You don't have to buy another 2 sets of flowers in the 3-week span.
No. And so I learned a lot of my negotiating skills came from, you know, selling flowers on a street corner.
Flowers and golf balls.
Flowers and golf balls. So you know what I learned at a young age? There's money out there. Go get it.
Say that again, Dave.
There's money out there. Go get it. Go find it. It's there. Come on. I learned that at 10, 11, 12 years old. I knew that. And so that just carried, you know, I'm still an entrepreneur today. Right. I'm still doing it. I'm doing it a little differently. Instead of selling golf balls, you know, to the golfers, I'm selling Firewalks to corporate America. So, but at the end of the day, you know, it taught me how to, you know, good things come for those who hustle.
I like that.
There's a lot of truth. And prospecting. You know, I had no problem knocking on doors when new people would move in with my paper route. I even sold magazines door to door, you know, so it was okay.
You didn't fear rejection.
I didn't care because somebody was going to say yes. So just get through all the no's. And I knew it was a numbers game. I learned that early on. If you knock on enough doors and you ask enough people, somebody's going to say yes. That's just the way it is. So if you can discipline yourself to do that and you don't take any of it personally, guess what? You can do really, really well. And so and I've done that. I sit here and did my marketing today for the company.
Right.
And so, yeah. So got kicked out of high school, got a really good job. And it just got, it was perpetual, the perpetual motion of that just kept moving me forward. And by the time I got to 1988, which is many years later, I was grossly addicted to heroin, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes, chocolate chip cookies. I mean, anything that would make me feel good, anything that I could use to avoid pain, or I could use to chase pleasure, I did it. And I was addicted.
But don't we all, to some measure, obviously different degrees and different ways or different things we are addicted to, but don't we in some measure all do that? We either avoid pain or chase pleasure.
Well, that's really interesting that you say that, because when I woke up that morning on June 8th, 1988, I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. I'm not doing this. I'm in way too much physical pain. There's too much emotional pain. I want out. And so the only thing I really thought to do in that moment was to take my own life. That's all I could really think of, because I knew that if I did that, then I'm done. I don't have to deal with it anymore. And I'm not wrestling with there's heaven or hell or any of that. I didn't care. I just wanted the pain to stop. Right. Well, it dawns on me, if I do that, those 3 kids upstairs, and I'm married to their mom, I'm gonna ruin their life. Yeah, I may be dead, but I'm killing them at the same time. And I didn't know what PTSD was back then. That was in June of 88. You know what I mean? I just knew it was like, oh man, the cops are coming, the paramedics are coming, the morgue's coming. It's going to go through school. You're going to ruin their life. And I love the kids and I love their mom. I can't do that. I got to figure out another way. So the next thought I really had was, well, why don't you call Alcoholics Anonymous? Well, you know what's interesting about that? I didn't know who AA was. I had absolutely no references for that. I didn't know anybody in AA. I'd never been to AA. Where did that thought come from? But there it was. So I did. I called AA, and I got this wonderful woman on the phone. This woman saved my life. And I affectionately over the years have nicknamed her Madge. And the reason I did that is because she talked like this.
Yeah.
She probably smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day. And I tell you what, Roberta, she was a badass. She really was. She was a gatekeeper. It was her job to interview you. And if she thought you were bad enough and you were serious, she would call somebody in AA, one of the guys, to come pick me up. And she did. And without her, I don't make it. I wouldn't have made it. There's just not.
So I went to prisoners.
AA. What's that?
She took no prisoners.
Oh yeah, but she was a gatekeeper. Yeah, and it was her job, and she knew I was bad. So I went to my first AA meeting on June 8th, 1988, and it stuck. I've been there ever since. Well, along the way there, right? One of the things you do when you get there, they give you one of these. Now, for people that are just listening, I'm holding up a chip that you get in Alcoholics Anonymous on day 1.
Right.
And so they give you another one for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 1 year. And I picked up one last year in 2023 in June for 35 years. This year, if I don't drink and I don't die, I'll pick one up on June 8th of 2024 to be 36 years.
Right.
So here's what happened. When I started getting sober, I had insomnia. So I was up late at night all the time. Well, there I am, 3 o'clock in the morning. There he is, Mr. Infomercial himself. That's the guy that owned the 80s is when it came to infomercials, because he was selling his programs through Gunthy Ranker.
Yeah.
So there was Tony Robbins, a young, vibrant, motivated, jumping up and down Tony Robbins. And, when I first saw him, I couldn't stand him. I thought he was pompous. I thought he was all motivated. I didn't like the guy because he had so much enthusiasm and I was miserable. So, what
I was born in the 70s, so I watched him in the 80s. There were infomercials in South Africa as well, of the tapes, the CDs, and the book. I think Awaken the Giant Within or something, or Unleash something. I was like, I have never seen somebody with this much energy before. And the infomercial will play the whole day and repeat over and over and over again back home.
Yeah. And what got me was, again, I didn't like the guy, but the first thing he said that got me, that I started listening to him was, He said, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. Back to your point that you just asked about. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, that's me. I'm chasing pleasure and trying to run from pain. I mean, it made total sense to me. And then I'll tell you what really got me. When he said, how do humans make decisions? And he said they do it one of two ways, either out of inspiration or desperation. And I went, whoa, I'm pretty desperate. Maybe I should listen to this guy. And I did. I bought his program. And as you said, it was a 30-day program. It came in a big old box, and it came on these little white things called cassette tapes.
Yeah, cassette tapes.
Right? Some of your audience is going to, what is a cassette tape? Well, if you go to the Smithsonian.
They can tell how old we are.
Yeah, I dated myself. No doubt about that. If you go to the Smithsonian, they're there. They're right next to 8-track tape and reel-to-reel. So he sent me the program. I plugged it in. I did what the man taught me to do, and it worked. Well, I ended up loaning it to a buddy of mine. And like 7 years later, after he borrowed it from me, again, this was all going down in 88 and 89. In 1995, Dan, my buddy in AA, called me and said, hey, did you know Tony Robbins is coming to town? And by that time, we'd both gone through his program, his tapes, read his book and all that. And I said, no, man, I had no idea. And he goes, dude, come on. I want to go. Will you go with me? And I said, sure, absolutely. Let's do it. He goes, great. Let me call you back. He calls me back an hour later and he goes, done. We pick up the tickets at will call. Here's what they told us to do. Number one, drink a lot of water. You've got to stay hydrated throughout this 4-day event. Okay, got it. Drink a lot of water. What else? Bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time in the room. And I giggle because, man, anybody who's been to a Tony Robbins seminar knows you are definitely going to spend a lot of time in the room. That man gets on stage for hours and hours and hours and hours.
He's a walking Red Bull.
He is. He's a walking Red Bull, though he's never drank one in his life.
Yeah, good for him.
Oh, yeah. He's no. Tony would never put that stuff in his
life. I've never touched one either.
I haven't either. I'm not going to. Sorry, Red Bull. I'm just not interested in your product. And then he said, be ready to play out and play full out and bring a good attitude. I said, well, Dan, how much was the ticket? That's going to determine my attitude. He said, $695. He said, you can pay me back. Don't worry about it. I remember thinking, what? $695? This is in 1995. Which
now would be what, 69,500.
I was thinking like 1.3 or 1.2 million, buy Bitcoin. So, and just as he's getting ready to get off the phone, he goes, oh, wait, I got to tell you something, man. The most important part, we're going to be doing a firewalk. And my brain went, hell no, we're doing a firewalk. I'm not saying anything, but my brain's going, no, ain't going to happen. And here's what's funny about that. I don't know what a firewalk is. What does that mean?
You just
I've never heard the term. But fire and walk in the same sentence didn't sound like anything this homeboy wanted to do. So I'm saying no, ain't doing it. But I'm not saying anything to Dan. I'm doing the total opposite. I'm like, yeah, Dan, sure, firewalk, cool. Sounds great, brother. All right, see you then. The big day comes. Yeah. We get to the event. Tony takes the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. The next thing I know, it's after midnight.
And he hasn't stopped.
He's still going like the energized bunny. And so, right, remember the guy that said, hey, bring snacks. You're going to spend a lot of time. If you don't, you'll starve to death. So the next thing Tony goes, take your shoes off. And I went, oh, no.
Firewalk time. Your friend warned you, Dave.
I'm not falling for that. I see where you're going with there. No. I'm not taking my shoes off. Well, Roberta, I got a big problem. Guess who's taking their shoes off?
You did.
No, everybody else. I'm
in a room with only one left?
I'm in a room with 3,500 people. And they're all taking their shoes off. So what am I going to do? Not take my shoes off?
You don't want that kind of spotlight.
Yeah, hey, look at Dave. What if he's a coward? He won't take his shoes off. So I'm like, okay, no, we can't have that. Well, I said from the very beginning, I'm not going to do this firewalk. I want to see Tony. I'll go, but I'm not doing the firewalk. No. And at that moment, I was still a no. But I'm like, but wait a minute. So what are you going to do? Well, when I do is I'm going to take my shoes off and I'm going to fake it. And then when we walk out there with 3,500 people into this big parking lot, I'm going to lose my buddy and I'm going to go hide in the back. No one's going to know. Well,
your dirty little secret.
I'm going to know my dirty little secret, right?
Yeah.
So it gets worse because as he's got you going out there, he's got everybody clapping and chanting. Right. So everybody's walking out there going, yes, yes, yes. And I'm walking out there going, no, I ain't doing this. Well, it gets worse. It gets worse. Because when you get out there into this big parking lot where they do the Firewalk for 3,500 people, he's got African drummers.
Oh, my people.
Your people and they're tearing it up. Dun, 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 dun,
yes.
dun, dun, dun. I mean, and it's thundering, man. You can feel the vibrations coming through you. It's beautiful, actually. And so now you got all that going on. Well, I ditched my buddy and I hide in the back. Well, to set this up logistically, when you get out there, over in the corner of the parking lot, there is a giant fire. It is huge. It's probably 35 feet wide.
So it's not just the logs.
What's that?
Is it an actual fire? It's not just the logs.
It's hardwood. What they do is they burn hardwood, seasoned hardwood all day. And what it does is after you burn for hours and hours and hours, it renders. And so now you have a big giant pile of beautiful coals. I mean, they are gorgeous. Well, how you set this up is you take a wheelbarrow over to that pit and you fill it with coals. And then you take a wheelbarrow and you bring it in between two lanes of sod, of grass. They call it a fire lane. And then they just take a flathead shovel and they sprinkle those coals on top of that grass on that fire lane. And that's what you walk on. Real simple. Well, I'm having none of it. I've made my way. I've ditched my buddy. I'm in the back. I got it all figured out. Well, Tony Robbins knows that the Firewalk is one of the most life-changing experiences on the planet. By far, bar none. It's been around for 1,000 years. It's been used by cultures all over the world for rite of passage, marriages, graduations, the birth of children. I mean, you name it. It's been used for all these cultural reasons. The Tahitians, the people of the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the people of India. Oh my gosh, you ought to see them. It's unbelievable to watch what they do in their firewalks. The people of Portugal, the Spaniards, the Indo-Europeans, the Native American Indians, right here in America. Right here where I live in North Carolina, where the Cherokees, they firewalked, right? So Tony did his research, and the reason he brought the Firewalk into his event because he knew it was going to create a paradigm shift, and he knew it was going to be one of the most life-changing experiences any of his participants would ever undergo. And he's right. He also knows that there's people like me. He also knows that he doesn't want us to miss out, because if we don't create the paradigm shift, we're only getting a little bit of that seminar. So what's he do? He wants to do everything he can to get you across. So he knows there's people like me. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you.
Where you were hiding?
I'm hiding along with other people. I'm not the only one. There's lots of them. We're hiding in the back. We don't want to do this. No. Because basically you have three types of people. You have the people that go, I'm ready, let's go. And then you have the other people that go, well, I'll tell you what, let's watch Roberta. And if she doesn't burn herself, then we'll go after her.
Then we'll know it's safe.
Right? Let us know it's safe. Let her go first, right? The sacrificial lamb, if you will. And then there's people like me that are, no, hell no, not doing it. Not going to happen.
Nope.
So there I'm back there. I got it all figured out, right? No, because here comes this guy. And he makes eye contact with me. And he won't take his eyes off me. And he's walking right at me. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. And he gets about 20 feet from me and he looks at me really funny. Like when a dog hears a funny noise, they tilt their head, right? Well, that's how he's looking at me. Like, there's something wrong with me. He goes, hey man, are you okay? And of course, when we're not okay, what do we say? We lie. Yeah, I'm fine. All good here, man. Nothing to see. Move along.
Right.
And so he goes right after me. He goes, so, hey man, you going to walk tonight? And I said, absolutely not. I'm thinking, why the hell do you think I'm hiding in the back, dude? Are you kidding me? And he goes, hey, man, and I said it with intensity. And he's like, hey, man, that's cool. No problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. And I went, oh, okay, so he's here to get me out of here. No, he's not. He's here to trick me. And he did, because this stranger, by the way, I don't know who this guy is today. And this guy has no idea that because he asked me one question, it put me in a position to literally go out into the world and transform tens of thousands of people's lives, literally. And I don't even know this person's name.
Wow.
And the question he asked me was, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I said, I'm thinking, yeah, sure, let's go do that. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. This should be fun. Well, he says, look, man, you can't see anything from where you are. And he's right. So
at least, yeah, come this way.
I got 3,500 people standing in front of me, Roberta. I can't see anything. I can hear it, right? The drums are going, dun, dun, dun. They're clapping. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And people are screaming because they're already doing it. And when they get to the celebration end, they're jumping up and down and screaming and celebrating. So that screaming's going on. I mean, it's intense. And so I got in line, right? I took the rate. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I'll get in line. And eventually he said, you'll get up there where you can see it. And so I did. Well, the next thing I know, another stranger comes up to me and he whispers in my ear and he says, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what? What do you mean he knows when you're ready? When he says go, you go. What does that mean? So, right. So I'm like, what? And so I'm walking along. Again, I got 1,000 people in front of me. Can't see a thing. But all of a sudden I get to a point where I can see it at an angle. And they're doing it. They're walking on fire. Every race.
Burning. So the fear that you had is.
I mean, it doesn't appear to. I mean, I don't know. I just know that they're doing it. They're firewalking. They're taking that first step and walking.
And celebrating at the end. You said they celebrate at the end. You had the celebratory noises.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't know about that until later, right? I didn't know what was going on with all that. Right. I just know that they were screaming when they got to the end. And there's a fine line between screaming because you're in pain and because you're, it's exhilarating, right?
It's still screaming. Yeah.
They're screaming. Yeah. So I'm watching it. I'm mesmerized. I can't take my eyes off it. Right. It's like driving by a car wreck. Oh, I'm not going to look at it. Yeah, right. Yeah, you are. And so I'm staring at it, right? I'm staring at him. Well, I'm not paying any attention to what's going on in front of me. And the next thing I know, boom, guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line. And I'm like, how the hell did I get here?
Go,
and
Dave.
Now I'm sitting and I'm there, right? And I'm looking down at the fire lane. Again, it's about 3 feet wide, 15 feet long, and the coals are on top. They're bright red. Those coals are bright red and they're thick. And the wheelbarrow's right there. So you can feel the heat coming off. So we got real fast. Well, as I'm staring into the abyss, my heart is beating so hard. I know it's going to jump out of my chest any second. And there's a trainer standing right there. And the trainer goes, eyes up. Kind of scolded me, right? It's like, oh, yeah. Okay, eyes up. Yeah, that's right. I was in a room with Tony for 10 hours. Guess what he taught us to do? Keep your eyes up.
Look up.
Don't stare at what you fear. Interesting metaphor. Don't stare at what you fear. Keep your eye on the prize. The prize is right over there because everything you've ever wanted is sitting right over there on the other side of your comfort zone. That's true.
Can I interrupt you on that, Dave? You know how they say, face fear, look it straight in the eye and tell it you're not going to get me or something. So he says, look up. If this is the fear at eye level, he says, so you look up, you look over it.
Right. I'm not staring down at it anymore.
You're not staring down at it.
And it's kind of a pattern interrupt too, right? It's like it interrupts your thinking. Oh yeah, my eyes are up. So I went from fear. Oh, my eyes are up. Okay, that's right. I learned that. So all of a sudden the trainer goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I said, yes. And he went stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell. The trainer could tell. I was not in a peak state. He could tell I was leaving, a lot on the table. And so he got in my face and screamed at me, stronger. I threw my hands in the air and I screamed yes as loud as I could. And he goes, go, go, go. Boom. I took off. Well, remember the guy, the stranger, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. I did.
And how did it feel? Because that's the moment we're all waiting for.
Well, they put 2 people at the end and they catch you. And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And I'm wiping my feet and all of a sudden I look back. Yep, I walked on them. And all of a sudden it dawns on me, it feels like I burnt myself.
Did you feel the burn? You actually felt hot under your feet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I definitely felt the heat. There's no doubt about that.
Mm.
But I thought I burnt myself. Well, when I checked my foot, no, I didn't.
Oh,
My foot's dirty, but no, there's no burns.
you
Oh,
know,
it's my other foot. No, it's not burnt either. You may think it's burnt, but it's not. It's just dirty. And so, you know, so literally I'm jumping up and down and I'm screaming. I'm acting like a little kid that, you know, the first time we ever rode a bicycle, right? I mean, it's exhilarating. And you're with 3,500 people that's also feeling the same thing. So your self-belief and your self-confidence and your self-worth all rises together. So the frequency of us has been raised. And we share it collectively, right? So we have what I call the Firewalk congruency, you know, the Firewalk connection. Because now, you know, it was just unbelievable. Because at that moment, I'm like, okay, where's the bus? Let's go climb Mount Everest. Because in that moment,
you know what he says, Tony says something about you change your state. Would you like to talk us through that, changing your state when you went through?
Well, that's what he did. That's exactly what he did. Squeeze your fist and say yes.
Yeah.
So now my physiology, yes. Yes.
And the guy says louder, stronger. So you
right.
literally change your physiology.
Yeah, absolutely.
Change your state.
Who hasn't seen a professional athlete get ready to go into the game? You see them? They're bouncing off each other. They're high-fiving. They're screaming.
Or they start jumping while they're waiting. Yeah, while they're waiting. They're jumping. They don't just stand there. They're jumping. They jump.
So that night was exhilarating. But here's where it gets really, really interesting.
Right.
The next day. So this is a 4-day event. That was day one, that night. Now we're in day two. We're all in the foyer getting ready to go into the venue. And I've never seen or witnessed anything like it in my entire life. Ever. I was watching everybody, very observant, because people are laughing, they're crying, they're hugging, they're connecting, they're talking about the Firewalk, they're talking about their lives, they're talking about the kids. And I'm watching people get along humanistically, unlike anything I'd ever witnessed, ever. Take March of 2020, how everybody got shredded apart and they started arguing about worthless stuff, masks and vaccines. And I love Donald Trump. I hate Donald Trump. Oh, shut up already.
Oh, no.
We're shredded.
All the dividing.
All the division.
Oh, man.
And the demonization. They had to get a whole bunch of people to hate Donald Trump. And that's called demonizing. It's been around a long time. They did it the same thing when I was a kid.
Whatever you support, here's the thing, and I can talk on this because I'm not from this country. What I've noticed since arriving here is that when there's a political or even sometimes a religious debate, the difference between where I come from and what I found here is that I can talk to someone who supports a different political party back home, but we can both agree that one, we are both South Africans. That's what we have in common. We love our country. And the reason we have these different opinions is because we want what's best for our country. We just don't agree on the method of getting there. But then we then say, okay, you know what? We disagree. And they'll go back to drinking a beer again or hanging out or having a barbecue. But at the end of the day, we don't fight over it like that.
Well, again, politically, so it's a two-party system. And I don't talk about politics. I'm not of either party. I don't do it. I don't believe in the system. It doesn't work. It's never worked. How can you take these guys think those guys are wrong, and those guys think those guys are wrong, and these guys hate these guys, and these guys hate these guys? It's not going to work, people. I don't care what you say. It's not going to happen. That's not how human behavior works. It works like I'm explaining now. I'm in a room with 3,500 people.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Right? We were all getting along like we had known each other our entire lives. 3,500 strangers. I've never seen anything like it. And it was like, and I was like, wow. So did we all drink the Kool-Aid last night? And the answer is, yep, we sure did. That Firewalk changed all our lives collectively. And so now we have something that we can relate to, something in common. Something extraordinary that happened the night before. So it connects us as humans. It's beautiful. So later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers. And I'm talking to this guy. His name's Ted Macy. Super great guy. Him and his wife, Mary, were trainers for Tony. And I said, so Ted, tell me something. What's it like to be in this environment on a regular basis? He goes, Dave, it is phenomenal. And he goes, and I'll tell you what, you need to get in here if you want to be around this. He said, you see those people standing over there with the black shirts and the pink writing on the back? Yeah. He goes, dude, they're volunteers. They were people just like you. They came, they wanted to come back. They wanted to be in the environment. They wanted to volunteer and give back. So he goes, if you want to come into the environment, when you get home, call Robbins Research, ask for a crew application. They'll send it to you, fill it out, send it back, see what happens.
Does this still happen today, Dave, to have that volunteer opportunity for anyone listening?
To what?
The volunteer opportunity, does it still exist?
With Tony Robbins? Oh, yeah.
With Tony Robbins? Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Like you said, to just be in the environment, to be around all that energy, all those people.
It's incredible. And sure enough, 9 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail that said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies. Boom. My foot's in the door. And it didn't take me long. I think I crewed 5 or 6 times before they hired me as a subcontractor. And because I had a military background, security background, they ended up putting me on the security team to help take care of Tony's celebrities. So we did that. My family and I were living on a farm. So I knew what a log splitter was. I know what a hatchet is. I know what hardwood is. I know what kindling is. So they put me on the fire building team because I knew how to use tools and stuff. And that's where I found my home. And in 2006, 2007, whenever it was, and by the way, when you're a volunteer, you have to pay your way. You have to pay your airfare, you have to pay your hotel, all your food, all that you pay for. So I was spending $1,500 or so every time I went. Well, my wife wasn't real thrilled about that.
But was that 15? Sorry, Dave. Is that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the cost of being a volunteer, paying your own way, cheaper than the ticket to be a participant, to go to the seminar?
Well, at the time, but even if you do that, you still have to pay your way to get there.
That's what I mean. Right? Yeah.
Whether you buy a ticket or you're a volunteer, you got to pay your airfare, you got to pay your hotel, your food, all of that. So again, I was spending $1,500 every time I did it. Okay, so again, my point of that is my wife didn't really like that because she didn't know who Tony Robbins was. She's got no references. She never read his book. She never went to his program. She never been to a program. So when they offered me a position in 1996 as a subcontractor. So they did something brilliant. They gave me a free ticket. And so I brought her. Right. And she went through the program. And when she graduated on Monday night, we were walking on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, and she said, okay, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid. This guy's pretty cool. If you want to work with this guy and they're paying your way and you make a little bit on the side, go for it. Yeah. And I did. So in 2000, again, that all happened in 95, 96, and 2003 rolled around and Robbins offered me the captain's position. Wow. And what that meant was I would take over all of Tony's Firewalks globally. Okay. 2005. Oh, by the way, and I was homeschooling. We were homeschooling our kids at the time, and Robbins paid for us to go on the road with him. And I took my kids and my wife. So I took the whole family. Can you imagine? In fact, my kids have been so deprived. Their very first event was Sydney, Australia. So can you imagine being homeschooled and your first events in Sydney? Imagine. That was in 2003. 2005, we went to London and we set the world record. That's where we firewalked 12,300 people. Now, in one event? One event in London. We did it at the Docklands out at the Excel Center. 12,300 people that night, one night. Again, it's a world record. Now, I want to disclose to your audience that Guinness Book of World Record was not there. However, it's still a world record. I don't care what you say. And no one's ever walked anywhere close to that many people other than a Robbins event, maybe a 9,000 or 10,000. So that was the biggest event that we'd ever done. And then to move this forward in 2014, Roberta, I'm driving down the road and my phone rings, and guess who it is? It's a company called Google. Maybe you've heard of them.
They sound kind of familiar.
Kind of, yeah, right. Apparently they have a lot of data. Oh, yeah. And they said, hey, are you the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins? Yeah, what can I do for you? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring.
Wow.
Okay. Well, homeboy's a free agent. What you got?
There you go.
Well, we have 148 executives. They're graduating. We want to create a paradigm shift experience. We want to create we want it to be spectacular, and we understand you're the guy. So in our conversations, I found out later that they wanted to do this event in the middle of the day. And I said, can't do a firewalk in the middle of the day. We can only do it at night. It's a safety issue. I said, I'll tell you what we could do if you want to do it in the day. We could do a glass walk. They said, a glass walk? You mean walking on broken
like
glass?
Glass?
Yep. And they said, ooh, tell us about that. So we ended up doing a glass walk. I ended up doing 2 of them. What was really cool, though, is I met one of the executives. And she basically said, look, I'm not telling you what to do, Dave. Oh, there we go.
Yes, we hear. Sorry about that. I think the internet was doing its thing. Yes. So you did a glass walk with the Google executives.
Yep. And again, they're the ones that told me, hey, you may want to start your own business. They said, corporate America, they want paradigm shift experiences. They want life-changing experiences. They want somebody like you that can, create these incredible life-changing experiences. And so I took it to heart. I mean, if Google's telling you you ought to start your own business, you should probably listen to them. And
Google?
I did. So, Google, they had some data. I mean, they knew what they were doing. They knew they wanted to create this incredible experience for those executives.
Right.
So anyway, so in 2014, Firewalk Productions was born. And shortly after that, after retiring from Tony's organization, I went to NASA, then Notre Dame, and then Virginia Tech, and Microsoft, and Heineken, and Remax, and Chick-fil-A, and YMCA, and the EO organization, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and I mean, and just on and on and on. The next thing I know, I'm on the Speaking and Communication podcast with Roberta, right? So you never know what's going to happen. Ta-da.
You never know what's going to happen. And here I am talking to the #1 firework in America. Oh my goodness, Dave. So, here's the thing. When you say that they want a paradigm shift for executive, would you like to explain to our listeners what exactly that means?
Well, if we look at it this way, what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. Okay, so why is it that the firewalking unites people at such a high level? What happens if a company's got a breakdown, or they're launching a new product, or maybe there's dissension because they're all arguing about mask vaccines and who the right political party is? Well, that's going to affect a company, because when dissension shows up, production goes down.
Yep.
Guaranteed. So how do you fix it? And if a CEO doesn't fix it, guess what? They'll find a CEO that will. And so that's where I come in. They hire me and I bring them back together. Let's get through all this crap. Because again, the fire doesn't care which political party you are. Could care less. The fire doesn't care whether you wear a mask or not. The fire doesn't care if you got a vaccine or 9 boosters. It could care less.
So if you're not united, if you're not in a spirit of collaboration in a team, you're not going to achieve the results that you desire.
Can you imagine if you took that kind of dissension? Do you think Navy SEALs care? No. Anything that gets in the way of the mission? No. You have one thing you can think about, and that's your objective and your mission, and you have to stay the course.
Right.
So, the
and
bottom
how
line
does it change you personally? So that's at work, but what about in your personal life?
Well, if you think about it, like look at my kids walked at a very young age. My daughter was 6 and my son was 9.
What?
And it completely affected them. Absolutely. Because here's the thing. If I can walk on hot coals that are 1,000 degrees and not burn myself, what else can I do? Again, it's exhilarating.
I've never seen kids do it. And I've seen so many Firewalk events. I've never seen kids that young.
Yep. Wow. I just did an event down for the EO organization in South Florida, and we had several kids. 2 of them were 5-year-olds. Now I incorporate the board break into the process. I took the Firewalk. The way Tony did it, I do it similar but a lot different, because I want a rite of passage. That's what I'm going for. I'm doing the Firewalk more like our ancestors did it. So I bring the board break in. That way, they take the board. It's basically a martial arts move. They do it in every dojo in America. And if you graduate in a belt, you typically always break a board. You're going to break it with your hands, your elbow, your knee, your foot, something. And so I have them write something on the front of the board they want to move towards. I have them write something on the back of the board they want to move away from. I have them put anybody's name on the board that they've lost. That creates the rite of passage. And then I have them write anybody's name on the board that they're out of sorts with. So in other words, if there's somebody in your life and reconciliation or forgiveness is part of that relationship on either side, put their name on the board. It stops tonight. You're going to give it to the fire. So we go outside. We have the board break station set up. Boom, they break the board. We circle them. They come back. They firewalk. They throw their board into the fire. Super powerful. And then I do another thing. I do what's called the Ho'oponopono heart hug. And
the Hawaiian system, the Dr. Hugh Len?
Dr. Hinlu, yes.
Yes,
yeah,
the Hawaiian system, the Ho'oponopono.
I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. So what I do is I put everybody in a heart hug, and they take 3 cleansing breaths, and they hug the opposite way. They don't hug like we normally do. We do it what's called heart to heart. And then when they take the 3 cleansing breaths, typically what happens is their hearts calibrate. Everybody's heart starts beating at the same time. So I'll do that like 6 times. And then that way, now I got the whole group, everybody's hearts beating at the same time. Super powerful. So now we get them back. It's a reset. It gets them back to acting like humans with each other, with love and kindness and compassion and joy and honesty and integrity. And that's the way you want your team to work. Their production goes boop. And then, I kiss them goodnight. And, we give them one of these little containers for in front of the listeners that aren't watching this. It's a container of the coals. You can hear them. A little container. And it says, I firewalked in 2024. And, we put the company name on there. And then that way they take that home and they can have that. And then, of course, we're getting it on video, and you're getting pictures. And because, if you go tell somebody you firewalked, they're going to say, did you get any video? No, well, it didn't happen. Right. So we get the video.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you didn't do that. If you want to pull you down, what do they say? Love your family, choose your friends, and choose wisely, because you will become who you spend time with.
Right.
So that's it. Now, here's something that happened that's really interesting, because my career just took a real interesting turn. So a couple of months ago, I was on another podcast, and I was being interviewed, and then we finished up, and then we were just talking on the side. And Natalia asked me, she said, David, hey, let me ask you, have you ever done a firewalk for veterans? And I said, specifically? And she said, yeah. And I go, no, why? She goes, we have 200 vets. And then, then it dawned on me, whoa, instead of being hired by corporate America, let me take this experience out to corporate America, and they can sponsor an event, and let's see if we can save some lives here. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and it came to me. Operation Do No Harm. And it's for 4 categories of people. Number 1, veterans. Number 2, first responders. Number 3, single moms. I was born to a single mom. And number 4, kids that have been abused and neglected. So now corporate America can hire us, bring us to their city. We'll put on the event for the veterans or whatever category they chose, the first responders, whatever. They get all the credit, and we do all the hard work and all the heavy lifting. And so now their entire company gets to reap the reward of literally creating an event that saves people's lives.
It's a win-win for sure. Yes.
100%. So that's kind of the direct. And by the way, we've got our first event already done. It's scheduled. It's going to be in Modesto.
Congratulations. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be in Modesto, California on April 12th and the 13th. We got a bunch of cool people. The Rotary there in Modesto, great group of people. They're sponsoring it. They're bringing us in. We're really, really excited about that. Really grateful to Ed, who's the president of the Paracot, as the president of the Rotary out there, and all his people. And so we're really super excited about that first event. And we've got some sponsors coming in. One of the guys that I do a lot of work with is Zippo. Because when I light the fire, I use their lighter. And so they've actually made a lighter with my logo on it, which I don't know if you
Yes.
can't see it very well, right? And so I reached out to him. I said, hey, we're going to be doing this thing called Operation Do No Harm, where we're doing firewalks and these life-changing experiences for vets and kids and moms and first responders. And I said, are you guys interested? And they said, oh, heck yeah. So I went up to Bradford, Pennsylvania. I sat down with the design team, and we designed a lighter that's going to say Operation Do No Harm, and it's going to have the date of the event. So this one's going to be April 12th and 13th in Modesto, California. So we're going to give those out to all the vets that walk. And we're going to give them a medallion, very similar to like we do in AA, so they can, take that coin and hold on to it. Beautiful thing.
Absolutely amazing, Dave. This is so life-changing and so transformational. More especially, as you said, it's about bringing people together. It's about shifting paradigms and always designing these win-win models, business models.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing too, Roberta. Corporate America has been so good to me. And now, corporate America spends a lot of money on sponsoring all kinds of things. And so, this is going to go viral. We already know it is. It's already starting.
Yes.
I've already got companies reaching out to me wanting to get involved because they're hearing about it through these podcasts, which is great. We loved it. Just, so it can go both ways. They can call me up and they can still hire me and we'll go do an event for them. And then they can also hire me and then we'll go do an event in their town for one of those categories. So if they, because everybody's going to relate to one of the four, right? Kids that have been abused or single moms or vets or, first responders, because there's a real high suicide rate amongst first responders too and firefighters.
Wow.
Because they're similar. You think what a firefighter does every day. They go to those car accidents and can you imagine having to cut those things open and pull kids out and stuff every day? That's going to affect you. You're definitely going to have PTSD and trauma. And so then when they retire, they get split up again. It's like they're like fragmented. Same thing with veterans, right? You go over there, you go to war, you see horrible things, but you're moving around as a unit with these other men and women. And then, they get blown away. All this stuff is going on. Then all of a sudden, one day, it's coming. And then they go home and they're scared to death. And then when they get home, they don't have the same resources. They can't reach out and connect. There's
no support system.
The support system disappears. And then depression sets in. And then once depression sets in and gets its grips in you, then you're reaching out for drugs. And once that happens, we lose them. The number that's floating around out there is 22 a day. Well, guess what? That's not true. It's not even close. That's only if they leave a note. Come on, people. Why would you use that number? Why would the government do that? Why would they throw that number out there when it's not true? It just ticks me off. It's just like, God, how pathetic. These men and women went over there and they come home and you treat them like this? Now they're don't even get me started. You can come across the border and get money and come into the country illegally. Come on, this has got to stop. I don't care what side of the coin you're on, what your political is. That's not right. On any level is that right? It's just not.
Yeah, so, let's not divert into the politics. Yeah, because politics is very
I'm just saying, you just can't let people into the country and let these veterans sleep on the streets and not take care of them. So my point is, they only count it if they leave a note. That's where the number of 22.
The suicide rate, yeah.
But so the number's actually, unfortunately, that number's up close to like in the mid 40s to close to 50 a day. 50 men and women a day are taking their lives. And so guess what? I've got a skill. I've been given a gift and I know how to change people's lives. I know how to save someone's life. I take my skills from AA, that's saving lives. I take my skills from the personal development industry. And, I got 30 some years into personal development. I got 35 years of sobriety, and I'm putting that all together for Operation Do No Harm. So needless to say, like Tony said to me when I retired, with great wisdom comes great responsibility. And he's right. And so Absolutely. I feel I have a responsibility. I'm a guy that can do something about it. I just need help. That's all. So you can help me come physically help.
Help is coming for sure. Yes, in so many different ways and forms. Yeah, Operation Do No Harm. Thank you so much, Dave Albin. the #1 Firewalk instructor in America. We really appreciate and feel privileged that you were able to be on our show today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Roberta. It means a lot.
My absolute pleasure. But before you go, if anybody wants to know more about the Firewalk adventures and where they're going to be next, where can they find you on the web?
I'm real accessible, real easy. Just go to our website. It's firewalkadventures.com with an S, firewalkadventures.com. I also have an academy. We don't have many spots left, but once a year in October, I do a training.
Right.
I have what's called the Dave Albin Firewalk Academy. And so they come up here to the mountains, they spend 5.5 days with me, and I teach them how to do all this stuff. And then that way they can go back in their community or their company or their own business or whatever, and they can create these paradigm, life-changing experiences themselves. And then I support them. So
spread it around.
That's on the web. That's on the website too. There's a button you can click on it, and there's a video there, and you can watch it. And if it resonates with somebody, and you want to come hang out with me in the mountains for 5.5 days, we'd love to have you.
And drink spring water.
and drink spring water. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna put you in the river, so be prepared for that.
Excellent stuff. Dave Albin, the #1 Firewalk instructor in America, Tony Robbins' protege, who spent about 2 decades with him from the Appalachian Mountains. This has been very transformational, inspirational, and just really fun. Thank you so much, Dave.
Again, my pleasure. Take care. Let's do it again sometime.
For sure. You are always welcome to come back. Of course. Yes. Thank you, Dave. You're a friend of the show, so we know that we're going to expect you in the future.
There we go.
Excellent. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify, and stay tuned for more episodes to come.